Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Kelly Kivlin, curator here at Dia Art Foundation, and it's my true pleasure to welcome you here tonight for Jill Magid's lecture on Chantal Akerman. I also want to first thank the Department of Cultural Affairs for their support of the program, and also to Brooklyn Brewery for the beverages. We also have water, too, if you need it. And we have a couple of seats in case anybody wants to fill them in. You're welcome to. I know we had a sold-out lecture, but it looks like, a couple people are still on their way. For those that don't know, Dia's history with Chantal Akerman dates back to 2001. We invited Chantal, Lynn Cook, former curator at Dia, invited Chantal to present a lecture of her work, A Family in Brussels, from 1998 at Dia Center for the Arts in Chelsea. And it was a lecture performance in October of 2001. Many people remember this lecture. It was fairly memorable. And this is something that we also then produced a CD from as well. So it's also within our publications collection. It's my pleasure also to introduce Jill, someone I've been able to have the pleasure to get to know over the last few years. As an artist, writer, and filmmaker, Magid forges intimate relationships with bureaucratic structures. Some of this I hope you agree with. I am always scared about that. To reframe and subvert the complexity, potential intimacy, and at times layered relationships we have with institutions, and also in individual and collective power. Magid lives and works in New York, and she is also an adjunct faculty member at Cooper Union. Solo presentations of her work have been held at, among others, the Berkeley Museum of Art in California, MUAC in Mexico City, San Francisco Art Institute, Tate Modern, the Whitney Museum. And within the last year, she's also presented work at exhibitions at Maxi National Museum in Rome. This is actually a couple years ago, was it last year? It moved. The Shanghai Biennial and the Museum of Contemporary Art in Marseille. Her lecture tonight is part of a longer literary piece which has also informed a body of work that we presented at the M. Leuven in 2020, so next June it opens, yes, curated here by Valerie Verhoek, who's joining us this evening. And I'm also pleased to announce that our collaboration with Jill continues with an exhibition of new work we'll be presenting at the Dan Flavin Art Institute in Bridgehampton, also to open at the end of June 2020. The lecture tonight will be approximately 1 hour, and please join me in welcoming Jill Magid.
It is the last hour in our house before it's no longer ours. Linus is sleeping upstairs on a hard mattress with only a loose sheet. I've stripped Banks's bed and am leaving his mattress here. Maybe we took the old mattress from the top of the bunk bed and left the bottom one here by mistake. It says organic cotton on the cover. Marco is following me around, lost. He has nothing to rest on. My jumpsuit, draped over the side of the bathtub, is not enough material for him to burrow a nest into, but I saw him consider it. Only the boys' mattresses are left, but he wouldn't dare. It will be years before either of them could win his trust back, and I don't see them caring to try, except at bedtime when they don't want to be alone. Johnny was tearing up this morning outside behind the car after pushing the king mattress down the stairs. I don't understand why we paid 2 men with a van to help and still have to push the mattress down ourselves. It wasn't easy and it kept getting stuck. Johnny told me to have everything ready by the door, including the mattress. The man driving the van is not a big man, and neither is the man who is helping him. Marco's eyes were so wide as the mattress was going down the stairs. I couldn't even see the yellow irises, just 2 wide black holes boring into his head. I'm not sure if I should take his litter box over to the new house or to the house by the beach where we will spend the rest of August. I turned my emotions off a month ago when it was clear that the move was imminent. And after weeks of fighting it and being angry, I was only getting more resentful. Linus is still in bed but awake. He asked if he could eat his croissant I got him there, on the mattress. I said, of course, surprised he would ask, but maybe it's the same thing as me leaving my shoes on in the house now. Why not? There's nothing to get crumbs or dirt on anymore, and no one is lying or playing on the floor. The plastic cover soccer ball is cracked and the only toy left in the house. Johnny's like me. He always leaves one or two things behind or unfinished, maybe as a way to come back to it. When I'm doing the dishes after dinner, I always stop when there's still a fork or a knife left in the sink. The table's clean, all the dishes are put away or in the dishwasher. The food is back in the fridge, but I never leave the sink empty. When my parents go to bed in their house, the kitchen is perfect. They'd never leave anything in the sink or on the counter, so that when they come down in the morning, the room is neat and clear, like a hotel, or as after the cleaning lady has just come, without a scrap in the sink. My dad wipes the sink out with a paper towel. He even gets into the drain. I appreciate that kind of morning, waking up with the kitchen perfect, but I never give it to myself. The king mattress is uncomfortably shoved into the wide archway between the front room and the entrance. Marco is using the gap it creates as a tunnel, bending his spine the way cats can. I feel like the tears are pressing behind my whole face, but it's not a thing to cry about. The ceiling fan in the beach house is a giant black propeller. The architects forgot about the two hanging lamps that flank it. They are on long strings and caught in the fan's current. They spin in wide circles. They don't spin in the same direction as one another, but exactly in the opposite. The AC guy is here. The AC is working now. It was on last night, but it was still hot. Our new duvet doesn't fit its cover. It's filled with down. It was hot under the down covers last night, and my pillow is too full. The fire alarm kept going off. One of the kids must have been playing with the settings. It went off every few hours. I don't know the house yet. I don't know it like the back of my hand like I did before the renovation. Even though it is almost the same house, it feels totally different. We knocked it down and built nearly the same thing again, updated from the 70s and with functioning appliances. You can use the bathroom in our room now. Before you couldn't. Or we didn't. The bathtub looked like it had come from a geriatric hospital. It was deep, oval-shaped, in a sickly beige color. It had stainless steel safety bars and deep black ducts from which jets of water burst forth. The first time I filled up the tub and turned on the jets, dirt and grime flushed out in big, heavy chunks. I never filled the tub again. It's strange how quickly the old structure of the house is disappearing from my memory, how the new floor plan is replaced by the old floor plan, and 3 years of space vanishes. Was I not really looking before? I can hear the ocean from the porch. I love how the ocean, which looks like the Caribbean today, flat and transparent, removes the anxieties from my body, as if they seep out onto the sand and the retreating waves collect them. When I was pregnant with Linus, I never felt anxious, even when I tried to. Mostly I loved it, not feeling anxious. I liked being pregnant with Linus. I liked feeling calm and relatively happy. Johnny loved me most pregnant with Linus. I would lie on my back in bed and try to make myself anxious, not because I wanted to feel anxious, but because I was in awe that a feeling I had lived with almost every night of my life before being pregnant was inaccessible to me now, that my fears were being suppressed to protect the baby. It was like my body had set up a protective force field against my mind so that I'd not pass these feelings on to the baby while he developed. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe I did pass on my anxiety. Maybe he felt it the whole time in the womb, and it was he who was absorbing the fear and protecting me from it. My plan is to focus on Chantal Akerman while I'm here. I was asked to write about an artist's work, and I chose hers. The beach house is the kind of house to write in, and that is what I plan to do. Last summer, I wrote the script of my film. I write while the kids are at camp and in the morning before they're awake. At night, I read. I use the table by the window as my studio, with my back to the dunes. When the table is not my studio, it is for eating or for playing Connect 4 or for drawing with crayons on a long roll of craft paper. I can repurpose a table like this here, but never at home. At home, studio must remain sacred and apart. At night, I read A Family in Brussels in bed. It's a thin red book that comes with an audio CD. Chantal's voice through headphones feels so intimate. I don't remember having this feeling of intimacy when watching News from Home, but I was equally haunted. It was the first Chantal Akerman film I'd ever seen, and it felt like a work I would have made. It consists of Chantal reading letters from her mother and views and vistas of New York with not a soul in it. The empty city of 1970-something. Nothing more romantic than an empty city or not knowing anyone in it. A foreign city where you feel like you don't exist or are passing through like a shade. It's a feeling I often seek out in my work, to exile myself, to walk as if no one can see me. This alienation can become dangerous if lived too long, but in shorter spurts is electrifying, almost like a violent separation from the world. Akerman wrote A Family in Brussels after her father died, about him dying, but it's more about her mother. All her work is. I read the parts to Johnny in bed in which the first person I switches from Chantal to her mother. I'd circled the I's in pencil and underlined where the transition between bodies begins, if it is there to be found. Sometimes there's a beginning, and sometimes it just switches without any warning. Her daughter from Ménilmontant travels a lot. Her daughter from Ménilmontant has no children, and she really doesn't care that she doesn't have any, nor a husband either. So she can come when she has the operation, and she knows her daughter from Ménilmontant will come. She thinks a lot, this daughter. She thinks a lot about this daughter who thinks too much. It worries her, especially when her daughter starts talking too much and too fast, and that comes from thoughts that are racing so fast that it's not even a thought anymore. And afterwards, she doesn't feel well at all, and there's nothing to do for it but wait for it to pass and for her to think normally again. That is, the way she usually thinks, because after a while it does pass. And then it switches. I always say to my daughter from Ménilmontant, as long as I can hear your voice on the telephone, I'm all right when I ask you if you're all right. But you say it in a way that's so distracted that I know you're thinking about something else. And right after that, you always say, I have to go now. When I read the switches in isolation like that, Johnny didn't like them the way I do. He pushes his thumbs against his forehead as if it's aching, which it might be. He tells me he doesn't like when Chantal and her mother are meant to be the same person. I don't think Chantal was implying they were the same person, but what he said gave me pause, even as I argued otherwise. As close as I am to Johnny and the boys, I don't think I could write as if I were any of them. After dinner, I had that feeling of embarrassment that I usually only feel towards myself, after a party when I've talked too much. It's an after feeling, like an after image. My voice from the party echoes in my mind as one awful and continuous hone, and I wished I'd said nothing at all or said it more quietly, or that I was one of those people who are more observers than participants. This time I had the feeling on behalf. We ate at our neighbor Steve's house. He has the house next to ours. Steve sat at the table on a stool, slightly above the rest of us. He was wet from the beach or maybe the shower when we arrived, and he was still mostly wet when we left. He is a big man and used to be a big music producer. He has a confidence that rises from deep within his body, which will keep him attractive. The first plate he served was a very thin piece of meat with no fat on it. It was dark red and sliced up like a loaf of French bread. I made it rare, he announced. I hope everyone likes it rare. Or I could put it back on. But he doesn't want to put it back on and sets the plate on the table while he's asking the question. Linus said, I like it rare, and already has his fork poised over a slice. Linus already had a burger, a thick beef patty on a large bun. He and Banks sat at the table first and were served burgers. I think that was the intention, for them to eat burgers, and for the adults to then eat steak. Banks had only eaten half of his burger when he said he was done. Steve opened the lid of the garbage bin, which he could reach from his stool, and said, Come on, Banks, put it here. And as Banks poured the half burger, torn pieces of bun, and a partially eaten ear of corn into the bin, Steve said with remiss, Sad to see so much food go to waste. And I felt responsible for it and a little ashamed. We told Linus to stop eating so much meat. We told him a few times. When everyone else was done, he tried to take another large piece of steak from the serving plate. I reached over and cut the piece in half. He grabbed for the larger half, but I shook my head just for him to see and served him the smaller one. Then there's ice cream and pie, and the boys both eat that too, and they both feel as empowered to speak as the adults do, if not more. They are the kind of children who think the focus should be on them, maybe because it usually is. We give them that platform. Afterwards, when we are home in bed, I ask Johnny, "Are we not good parents?" "No," he says, "we're not." But he pauses. "In many ways, we're great." "It was too much," I say. "It was a lot," he agrees. Linus is in the bathroom. He has woken up after falling asleep, after I checked on him twice. He made it to the toilet. He vomited. That sent us up. Linus is in the bathroom. He has woken up after having fallen asleep twice, after I checked on him twice. He is vomiting. He made it to the toilet before doing so. It's that kind of toilet with a shelf in the bowl. I don't understand this design. It is Calvinistic. It exhibits to you what came out of your body as if scolding you or holding you accountable. He made it to the toilet, but he didn't raise the seat. It's covered with red vomit, the color of the raw meat that Steve first served. Before I go in to comfort him, I get the all-purpose cleaner from under the sink and a roll of paper towels from the broom closet. The bright light in the bathroom illuminates the hallway outside of it and seeps into the kitchen and boys' rooms. This is a small house and the light travels far. I worry Banks will wake up. He doesn't. I worry the same thing the second time Linus is in the bathroom throwing up again. When I say, "Throwing up makes you feel better," he says it isn't true. He doesn't feel better. I am spraying all-purpose on the white-tiled floor and all over the toilet bowl and the toilet seat. He has finished throwing up. Through tears, he says, "I won't be able to sleep. My nose is stuffy." I said, "You ate too much. We told you to stop eating." And then I think of my mother and how she used to care for me when I was throwing up and how she would never have blamed me for throwing up the way I'm blaming him now. I wash my hands and help him blow his nose, which he has to do but doesn't want to do. He's angry at me for making him blow. I say, "Do it again, this nostril and then that nostril." If I don't ball up the toilet paper for him, he draws too little from the roll, so there's not enough and he's blowing through it into his hands. "Linus, what? Don't blow into your hands." I rub his back, which is warm but not feverish, muscular and soft. Not like Banks's, which is just soft and endless. "You will feel better now that you have gotten rid of it." He is calmer. He is not yet tying himself into a knot like he will the third time he vomits, when Johnny will get out of bed and join him in the bathroom and leave me outside of it. After that time, Linus will get into his bed, rolled to his side with the covers grasped tightly in his palms and pulled taut to his chin. He gets himself in a knot, too tight to penetrate. Every time I read A Family in Brussels or watch No Home Movie, I think of the video Sophie Calle made of her mother dying. It's a 10-minute film and nothing visibly happens in it. The camera is on level with her mother's head, which is resting on a pillow. She is lying on her back. You can't see her breathing, and you can't see when she stops breathing. I know because I looked for it. Her death is invisible. I wonder which is more disturbing, the invisibility of her death or the fact that the camera is capturing it. No, capture's the wrong word here. Witnessing it, documenting it autonomously. Calle probably put the camera on a tripod and pressed the record button, and her mother died while it was on. Death on digital time. It is one of my favorite works. I have no judgment as to its making, but I don't think I could exhibit it. Maybe I could imagine making it, but it would probably be of myself dying rather than my mother. Neither Sophie Calle nor Chantal Akerman had children, but they both made work about their mother. Calle only after her mother died, Akerman her whole career, which she ended shortly after her mother died. Do you film your mother's death when you do not have children of your own? And when you do have children, do you make films of your own death instead? Maybe it was because I had the boys late that I don't take them for granted. I know from my time with Linus that I can only be conscious of the present as it is happening, and that I cannot remember it afterward, or at least not accurately. The past moves so quickly, and the child changes so profoundly that he becomes unrecallable and irrevocable. I don't recognize either of my children in pictures. I remember looking at the pictures more than I remember them looking like that. I take all the skin and the touch I can now. Each time I feel Banks's skin, his endless skin, I'm amazed how it envelops and contains him and his small, warm hands. He is in bed with his back to me. Rub my back, he says. Rub it or scratch it, whichever you want. I continue to do so until he no longer needs me to stay. It doesn't take long, but it has to be on his terms. When his breathing slows, I can say, I'm going to go now, and he says, okay. I love you, Banky. I love you, Mommy. The camera is on a tripod pointed at her mother as she eats in the small kitchen table. She is complicit. Chantal is across from her with her back to the camera, framed like Godard. But now she's risen from her chair and stepped into the frame behind her mother. She's searching the fridge for mustard. There isn't any. Nellie is looking at the camera, but not into it. Or maybe she's just looking in front of her. Chantal returns with the pickles. She is talking about her father's mother, Nellie's sister-in-law, who used to scare her as a child. Nellie says it was the menopause, but Chantal says it was also the diabetes. It was the effects of the war. She was so strong during the war, but when it ended, she broke down. Chantal says she was afraid of her. She remembers her hair being messy. Her mother said it was. They agree. But a child sees what a child sees. Chantal was born 5 years after her mother left Auschwitz, and she inherited the trauma. You can inherit trauma. It's called epigenetic inheritance. There's a lot of research about it now, and she did. Chantal was a buffer for Sylviane, her younger sister, who didn't inherit it, or not nearly as much. For the 8 years before Sylviane was born, Chantal did not eat much. Because food was scarce during the war, Chantal's mother had to have bread in the house at all times. Maybe her mother tried to feed Chantal too much. Babies don't eat when they're forced to eat. Later on, Chantal liked to eat. She licked the bowl, but the trauma remained. I pause No Home Movie on my computer and read the news online. An airport employee took a passenger plane without any passengers in it out for a suicide flight. On the radio, he spoke calmly to those in the control tower about what he was feeling and what he was doing. There is a photograph published of his flight. It is a little black plane silhouetted against the sky. He tried to make the plane do a backflip before sinking it into the sea. I return to the film. Chantal is Skyping with her mother on her laptop. Why are you filming me like that? Because I'm trying to show there's no distance in the world. You are in Brussels, I'm in Oklahoma. Look, there's no more distance. The studio in Brooklyn is warm in winter because it's close to the boiler. I put a couch in the writing room next to my desk. I thought I'd watch films on the couch, but I don't. I watch them at the desk, in front of the windows along the breezeway facing the wall. I bought a box set of Chantal's films from the 70s, and I've been watching Les Rendezvous d'Anna in French with English subtitles. Anna is a filmmaker, traveling for 3 days between Paris and Germany, introducing screenings of her film we never see or learn anything about. She meets people along the way, including her mother in Brussels, but most of the time she's alone, walking through a train station, riding on a train, lying on her bed in a hotel room, or staring out the window. She is lost in a cycle of screenings in European cities still haunted by the war. Her film is an excuse to be in exile, a nomad, and wander. The most suggestive scene is in Essen. Anna enters her hotel room and walks to the window. There is a thin curtain in front of it. She takes it in her hand, and as the camera tracks her, she pulls the curtain across the window and then a second window and one even pass. The window is double paned. She opens both layers and the sound of trains burst forth. She stands there for a long time looking out with her back to the camera before and after closing them. The shot is so long and Anna so still that I checked I hadn't paused it. I think Anna is a stand-in for Chantal, but Chantal's sister said she isn't. I met her at a festival. She says Les Rendezvous de Anna is just a story, not like a family in Brussels when their father was ill. That was true. That was reality. The footage of No Home Movie was true while Chantal was recording it, but then later she decided to do something with it. The footage was true until she made it a montage. Then it became a fiction. I got an invitation to participate in a film festival in Belgium. 2 screenings in 2 different cities several days apart. The similarity between this trip and Anna's is not lost on me. It feels like an opening. I'm not sure if I want to take her place or to use this as an opportunity to find my own. A young woman is in a telephone booth at a station, Essen Station, a rather important city of Ruhr. She left the cabin open. Her travel bag is thrown to the ground in the wide gap between the sliding door and the cabin. She slips money into the slot. She dials a number. It leaves a long bell. She is waiting silently. We understand that no one responds to her because at the leap of a moment she hangs up and the money falls back into the wooden bowl. She takes it back and leaves the cabin. She then crosses the station. The cinema is on the 2nd floor. We're in Turnhout, a small city in Belgium. The 1st floor is like a mall without stores. Bright cold lights, white tiles on the floor, an ATM machine in the corner. A sign over Theater 5 says the title of my film in black sans serif letters. I scouted the cinema online. It used to be called Utopolis. In the image, Utopolis is written as silver letters in thin relief, Art Nouveau style above the entrance. The entrance is a 4-panel sliding glass door. The photograph of the sign over the door is centered and symmetrical, as if Chantal shot it. At the cinema, the cinematographer I hired is waiting for me. He is shadowing me on this trip, filming me follow Anna when I am unable to film myself. The last of the moviegoers are leaving, and I leave with them through the back entrance's sliding glass doors beneath the blue neon light. It's a good shot, but I'm unsure if I will use it. The glowing yellow CGS sign at the top of the building goes out, and we turn the camera off. We move away and head for the only bright spot in the street. It's a cafe. There are pleated curtains behind the windows. We enter. I am alone. It is just past 3 a.m. The only hotel still open with rooms to let used to be the old train station. She is standing inside the lobby of a modern hotel. She has just crossed the threshold. She frowns her eyes that are not yet accustomed to the shade yet without freshness of the hotel. Behind her, there is a rectangle of very white light in the frame of the open door. She is about 30, probably less. She looks distracted or rather smooth. She wears a very simple blue dress, almost ordinary. She has in her hand a travel bag that looks almost empty. If we look closely, we can see that she hasn't done her hair, that she's not wearing any makeup, and that her dress is a little too big, although there's nothing incoherent about it. She casts a brief circular glance at the hall of the hotel. She suddenly gives a kiss to someone sitting with a beer at one of the low tables surrounded by armchairs, looking as though he's waiting. The space broken by a few rectangular columns, 6 which support the ceiling. In the background, a modern elevator. The floor covered with a dark carpet moved in this season. She goes without hesitation towards the reception. The woman who booked me into the room does not look tired. She has black straight hair, the kind of black that horses have, not people. It is pulled away from her face like a thick ponytail that goes almost to her waist. Her face is illuminated by the computer screen on the desk in front of her. I tell her that she has beautiful cheekbones. They create a strong shadow, almost like a hollow. She says she doesn't like them. That is why she never wears makeup. This bone, she touches her cheekbone and the bone around her eyeball, below her brow. They're too big, these bones. I tell her that people get surgery for bones like that. She shakes her head, then stands up to escort me to the room. She is wearing black faux leather leggings, as black as her sweater, only shinier, as dark as the shadow of her bones. The corridor is perfect, like a model of hotel corridors and reminiscent of the one in Essen. It is a deep salmon color with gold room numbers alongside mahogany doors spaced evenly down the hall. I pass from room 1 to 11 on the side of the hotel that's facing the tracks. The corridor is dark with a dim light. It is almost silent, only for the sounds of a TV emanating from behind a door in either room 3 or 5. Room 11 is on the ground floor with the tracks right outside the window. I open the curtains to frame it and wait for a train to come. It doesn't. I don't need to turn the lights on in the room. The track is illuminated. The blue LED lights over the track and the golden glow of the street lamp make me feel like I'm in a diorama inside my room, like the black Nike shoebox that Banks carried to school yesterday before I left. He took the shoebox to school to make a diorama, and I can't help feeling like I am in it. I don't usually sleep naked, even after sex. Beyond undergarments, I packed only the clothes I am wearing. I wanted to be mobile and unencumbered by stuff. I am anyway, as I have all my equipment, as well as the books the festival people gave me on Flemish architecture, a local beer, and 2 packs of playing cards. Turnout is famous for its playing cards. I'm not sure how many of Anna's gestures to repeat from the film, so I repeat them all. I did not wash my body. I removed my jacket and sweater and hung them in the closet. I hung my raincoat from a hook on the side of the armoire. Still no trains pass. It is very late or very early. Maybe they don't come at night. I am standing naked between the bed and the window, waiting for a train. The red light on the camera behind me is reflected in the glass. The sign announcing turnout is closer to room 1. The train, if it comes, will fill my whole window. There is a small vehicle on the second track with a white ethereal light. 2 men are outside of it working on the track. I can see them, but they can't see me. There's a sign above my window. It says, "Don't worry, the glass is tinted." I'm in Leuven. I woke up at 6 a.m. I'd slept naked again. It was cold in the room, but I was sweating. The room has 2 windows. I spread the mustard-colored curtains open. They don't move seamlessly as I would have hoped, but jerk along the metal rail. One slides from the center to the left, the other to the right, which is a problem. In Les Rendezvous, both curtains slide to the right, and one even pass. The windows overlook the town square. Outside the square is empty. It will rain, but it hasn't yet. I shower. The shower head is large and flat, and the water comes down like rain. I make the temperature as hot as possible. From the shower, I can look out through the diamonds of the bathroom stained glass window into the square. I am on the train to Brussels Central, where I will visit Chantal's archive, made up of everything she left behind in her apartment in Paris. It's a sunny day, but foggy. The fog sits heavy like smoke on the landscape after a forest fire. Only the row of houses closest to the track are visible. The line of trees behind them is like a wall behind which the fog gathers in weight, marking the border between what is visible and what isn't. The archive is next to the Beaux-Arts, which is where I am now, in the cafe waiting for Chantal's friend Marilyn. Chantal's sister told me to contact her. She is organizing the archive. I sit down and open my book, The Scenario for Le Rendezvous d'Anna. It says it's the scenario, but it reads like a novella. It is in French. I type the French words into my laptop to get the English words, 1 sentence at a time, even the words I recognize. I am typing the foreword, written by Eric de Kuyper, the man who discovered Chantal and championed her. The advantage of being foreign is twofold. We are not at home, and for others we are normally other. The gesture, however, is reflexive. For the foreigner, the other, the native, is also foreign. They are each to each other foreigners. On this basis, we can agree. Being a stranger in an accidental home called Belgium means finding oneself segregated. To be other in one's own environment is to be discriminated against. Those who are alike cannot accept those who are unalike. Exile by vocation has for centuries been the lot, not only of the Jews, but also of those expatriate professionals who are artists and intellectuals, who work away from home, their own countries. Artist and intellectual sounds as false as Jewish, even if you are appointed to one of these words or 3 at a time. To be able to choose one's roots, what a luxury. Your own culture, what a thrill. One's own cultures, and to reject them when you need to as well, a real delight. not to be limited by them, but always to be on the lookout for them, to refuse the Father. What a temptation. The monumental and irredeemable error of the wandering exiled Jewish people was to have not hoped but acquired the promised land, to have accepted Israel as a bargaining chip. Solitary travelers, foreigners, merchants, intellectuals, or craftsmen, they become fighters, nationalists, in an elected ghetto for the homeland. What a shame to have accepted the territorial concretization of a biblical promise, a bowl of soup in exchange for a dream. I'm not sure about his interpretation, but I'm drawn to the idea that the monumental error of a wandering people in search of the promised land is to arrive, take root, and stop searching. Marilyn has arrived. We're sitting across from each other at Café Victor in the Beaux-Arts, where she and Chantal often met. She's wearing a black raincoat and a scarf. When she sat down, she kept them both on. Her scarf is shaped like an obtuse triangle, and only after looking a long time at the orange and black knit do I recognize the form of a tiger. She reminds me of Anna's mother when she and Anna meet at Brussels Midi Station. Marilyn is aware of the analogy. She says that I am stylish. She likes my raincoat. I tell her I'm dressed like Anna, or in the spirit of Anna, and point to my tan-heeled shoes. Marilyn says she was more of a friend to Chantal than a producer. She was in the car with Chantal when she shot From the East. There was no plan. Chantal only knew she wanted to go on a trip to Eastern Europe. They'd be driving, and Chantal would say, "Stop." She'd see something that Marilyn did not, and she'd get out of the car to shoot it. Sometimes, like with Anna, she had a plan and a crew and a big budget, but sometimes she didn't. She made 43 films during her lifetime. Some of them were short. She was often looking for characters who looked like her. Aurore, who plays Anna, was not at all what Chantal thought she was looking for until she met her. To film the train scenes in Les Rendezvous, they rented a train for the night. It was expensive. They traveled back and forth between Leuven and Brussels at least 4 times that night. They changed the signs at the station to look like the train went on to further stations. They were creating fiction. We moved down the street to the archive. The poster for Les Rendezvous is in it. It's by a famous painter. I don't like it, but Marilyn loves it. Anna's illustrated face is not nearly as beautiful as her actual face. Marilyn disagrees. The production we are looking at is in black and white, but the original is in color. The color's beautiful, Marilyn says. It was very daring at that time to have a painting as a poster. The location shots are inside a manila envelope that says Alemania LRDA. They're a fat stack of black and white photographs printed crooked with white borders. They are mostly of Germany, Essen mainly, and a few of Cologne, but not solely. There are also images of Brussels Midi Station, including the cafe where Anna meets her mother. It's a big parlor with green marble that looks like Café Victor. Marilyn said that's why she suggested to meet there. Perhaps she wore her coat and scarf like Anna's mother had to further the image. They went to Essen because it is in Germany. Chantal had to film in Germany, and Essen is close to Belgium. It did not take Chantal a long time to find the right hotel. The location shots are taken from the window of the hotel room, across the street from the train station. The people on the pavement below, moving in and out of the station and on the streets in front of it, are overexposed. The view from the window, nothing else in the room, only the window and the view from it, the station and the trains. The view Anna blocks with her body in the film, but Chantal describes in detail in the book, the view without Anna in it. At some point within the time that Anna stands motionless at the window, the point of view switches. It feels like the person observing the city is no longer Anna in front of the lens, but Chantal behind it. And that someone else, or a whole generation, is behind her. It's like the camera has been left on a dolly and the director has walked away, taking her actor with her, and then let it go. The camera is omniscient. It rolls of its own volition and then floats out the window like a drone. I get out of the taxi in front of the hotel. I pull my suitcase off the seat and onto the pavement. The hotel's large revolving doors like the kind in airports, only more luxurious, with black carpeting so soft I no longer hear the suitcase wheels upon it, and yet smooth enough for them to glide across it. The lobby is black and dark, with illuminated cube-shaped vitrines along the wall with nothing in them but black faces on top of them. Below them are purses, hung from pegs and lit like jewels, like a kind of decoration. The lobby of the hotel seems to be a continuation of the Prada store beside it. It is as if the lobby is vacuum-packed. Not that everything is stuck together, but it feels like the air has been sucked out of it, absorbed into the black paint and the black carpet, but I don't feel suffocated. Quite the opposite. I feel as if I'm in an environment with no breathable oxygen, like the sea, and that I have grown gills. The elevator lifts me silently and without any registration of motion in my body. I am absorbed into the black. The doors open on the 15th floor. I realize only then that I booked this room to get the view of the city from the window, like Anna in her lover's hotel room in Paris, but my cinematographer is headed home, in the van with the gear, to rest before our pilgrimage to Essen tomorrow. Anna's room in Germany, Anna's room in Essen that stands for all of Germany. I open the door and upon seeing the view feel a sense of urgency to capture it, as if the view will end or the city's nighttime lights will turn off. It is not a room to occupy, but one to make disappear. It is only a frame for the window. It would be wrong to film the interior of this room or repeat Anna's movements inside of it. I don't even consider doing so. I know that any light I turn on inside the room will be reflected in the glass, so I don't turn any on. I drop my bag on the floor and throw my coat on the bed. I want to get out of my clothes and wash my face. I want to get a glass of wine from the bar behind the lobby. I tell myself to wait on the view, to do all these things I want to do first, but I can't pull myself away from the window. I take a shot and then another shot. So many shots that the red record light on my phone starts flashing between on and off, unsure of where I meant to stop and where I mean to begin again. I close the app and reopen it. I rummage in the dark through my bag for a charger as the phone is dying and I can't stop recording. I remember what I love about surveillance footage, especially at night. The anonymous mechanical point of view, the cars with their alien eyes and toy-like movements. I am above the city. No one else is even close. I know it'd be better for the film if my cinematographer was here, but it feels better for me that he is not. I can hear the traffic, but it's muted, burnished by the atmosphere to a gentle foaming wave, a wave that never crashes on the sand or pulls back into the sea, but rises endlessly. One main throughway cuts vertically through the left side of my window, a very wide and trafficked avenue coursing through the city as its main artery. The city at night seems to exist almost exclusively there. It is impossible to move the 4 sliding screens in front of the windows completely away from the view, but I try. They are on 2 tracks, one directly in front of the other. I slide them around like faces of a Rubik's Cube, creating one view by sacrificing another. I use the screen of my phone like binoculars, magnifying and searching the main avenue for each frame. The city exists only for me on this small screen through which I can magnify it and pull it closer, up to the 15th floor. The resolution drops, the city pixelates like it's teeming. At the top of the avenue, almost at the horizon, from the mouth of a tunnel like a blue neon arc, the shape of a rainbow, a series of cars burst forth. There must be a traffic light outside of it, and it must have turned green, for they rush out like ants suddenly exposed by an overturned stone. The whole city seems asleep except for the avenue and the cars running along it and around the top edge of the roundabout through which a tram passes, stopping in the center and then continuing. It is like the window in Essen, the way Chantal describes it in the book, not the way she shoots it in the film. The view from the window that's captured in the archive as a pile of location shots, perhaps taken by her assistant, meant to serve as a practical purpose but now feel like art. I remember the location shots as if I can superimpose them here, onto this city pulsing below me, the cars moving through its body like blood cells through capillaries. I keep meaning to stop filming and go down and get a glass of wine, but I keep filming. Essen Station. She walks among people. with a slightly uncertain step at first, as if she didn't know where she was going. Then she distinguishes the exit and walks with more certainty, and although it does not actually work in no time, its pace contrasts with that of other passerbys or travelers passing through the station or passing through it. They walk more slowly, as if around 6 o'clock in the evening, however, nothing is waiting for them. They walk slowly with a sad step. Some people wait for the air behind wagons or are left luggage. They will probably make a long trip. But it is especially the others who are astonishing, the employees or the workers who return home to the next city after a day's work and who are advancing so slowly towards lane entries. Some completely cross the station as without energy. We cannot say they look exhausted after a day of work, and that is not why they seem not to be pressed to go here or there, God only knows, but as if their energy was elsewhere. And at the same time, under this air of slowness, of non-investment, there is the expression of an underground tension. So the young woman I will describe in the next scene crosses the station. In Essen, the hotel is across from the station. I pass from the bright yellow sunlight outside of it into the cold white lights of the lobby, where a crew of receptionists dressed and behaving like flight attendants at an airline counter. I approach one with blonde hair. One of her eyes doesn't focus on me when she speaks to me. I cannot imagine what she sees, or if she sees just to the side of me, or if her vision is always peripheral. She is looking for my reservation and my request for a specific room. Glass bowls of individually wrapped candies are on the counter, like Jolly Ranchers that have a fizzle in the center. Each color, red, green, yellow, tastes the same. I like the fizzle on my tongue and eat a lot of them. I take one each time I come back with one room key to exchange it for another. I think I finally found the same room that Chantal filmed in. It is not room 414 as it was then. The hotel has since been renovated. It is not on the 5th floor because the window's too high, nor on the 3rd floor, I checked them all, because the window's too low. On the 4th floor, outside all the rooms facing the station, except for those on a corner, have a fence. In room 406, a large black crow is perched on it, looking ominous. It's room 407. The bathroom door is no longer where it was. It's been sealed off. A desk is pushed against it with a coffee machine on top of it. The bathroom is still in the same place, but you can't see into it from the bedroom. You have to go out of the room and into the entryway, which used to be the corridor, to enter it. The green tiles that were in there are now white. We extend the dolly tracks out Anna's hotel door into the entryway and before the new bathroom. The same carpet from the corridor, brown with beige and turquoise circles, like intersecting ripples, continues into the room. I don't stand on it with bare feet. I'm no longer sure why I'm repeating this gesture of opening and closing the windows and looking out at the city, especially here. I could have used the scene from the film, but I wanted to do it. I love the shot, and I wanted to repeat it. I wanted to put myself in Anna's place, who Chantal put in her place, to occupy that position and belong to it. But I am not sure what to do or how to feel now that I am standing in it, with the cinematographer standing behind me. I want to set something into motion, to continue a migration, to inherit the past and hold on to it, but I don't know if I can, so I wait, with my back to the camera, for a train to come. It does. She goes to the window. She closes the double windows. She looks through the glass. In front of the station, the people are sinking and returning from a kind of hole, no doubt a metro mouth, as the trams move along the double tracks through the tunnel to and from the station. There are some who cross each other. They have two wagons, which, when they turn, look like snakes slithering in opposite directions. On the left, blue taxis, there's one that starts. She didn't see if he's charging anyone. And then she looks at the platform again, people waiting, frozen. Some begin to move. The train is coming. It stops. Some travelers are coming down, some hesitant, but most of them are walking slowly along the same path. Others go up and disappear with the train that starts again. The platform is almost empty. Straight ahead of her, to the left of the station, there is a big square-shaped electric clock showing the time at 6:42 p.m. Above it is a signboard which dominates the urban landscape with its straight-lined heavy letters stuck on the front of an American-style building with the words "Croup." Behind the station, streets rise and turn and get lost. Cars whose doors are violently illuminated by the sun. To the right of the station and the tunneler trams, a lamp shop all lit up in broad daylight, and then further to the right, an old post that was probably brought together, an old post that was probably not destroyed during the war, and then something looks like a bank. It looks like it's brought together in front of her eyes, the essence of a city. And this city, where we do not hear anything, moves so slowly. I woke in the room that Anna supposedly slept in, but I guarantee Aurora, who played her, did not. Is it fiction or documentary when you actually do something, even if you're following a fiction? The heavy curtains canceled out the light from the station. In the middle of the night, I got out of bed to close them. Close the window I'd cracked open, the European-style window that you can choose to open from the side completely or prop open from the top. I had done the latter, with the corner window that Akerman does not show, but used as a light source the way we did. The sound of bells, were someone playing them or were they chimes, had woken me. I shut the window. In the morning, the room looks close to the way we'd found it. Only a few hours ago, it was trashed to make way for the dolly. The mattresses, the large bed as two twins pushed together, each with their own blankets and sheets and terrible turquoise velvet pillows. An utterly soulless room, as if the designers wanted the room to depress. Colorless, even with color, white sheets, pale green wall behind the bed, beige synthetic fabric upholstered to the headboard. I am on the Thalys train to Liège. It doesn't go to Leuven, even though the website said it did. I will go to Liège and switch the train on the same track, leaving 13 minutes later until I arrive in Bruges in time for my screening. The conductor wrote it out for me on a thin strip of white paper, which he pulled out of his receipt machine. The fog is heavy, almost complete. A woman has entered the train. She carries a large baby in a car seat, followed by a 3-year-old boy. She is attractive, with reddish hair the same cut and style as mine. She is graceful with them. She puts the car seat on the seat by the window and the boy in the seat across from it, and then sits down beside him. The man who had been sitting there returns, gathers his things, and moves on. She says "Dank," lightly and unapologetically. She takes the baby out and lays him in her lap. His small green leather moccasins are pointing and flexing as he anxiously turns towards her breast, still covered by a long-sleeved t-shirt. She lifts her shirt and he latches. While he is feeding, she is setting up her other son with a spiral-bound reading book and another book that has notches along the side with yarn to wrap around as a sort of game. I'm so far away. I'm directly across the aisle from her. Outside the window is the German countryside. We pass Cologne and Aachen on our way to Belgium. I think of my boys asleep in Brooklyn, where it's 3 a.m., and how far away I am from them. In this story, I'm the single woman across the aisle writing, praying the baby doesn't cry and the boy does not have a tantrum. At the same time, when I look over and see the baby feeding, I remember the feeling so well that it becomes physical. My breasts feel heavy, as if they are filling with milk, and I long for the closeness of my boys when they were so little and soft, the warmth of their bodies against mine, breastfeeding in bed and falling asleep with them in that position. The following afternoon at Brussels Midi Station, on the platform, Anne is there with her mother. The train arrives. Anna's mother looks at her and says very gently, "Anna, tell me you love me." Anna folds herself into her mother's arms and says, "I love you." On the platform, Linus is there with his mother. The train arrives. Linus's mother looks at him and says very gently, "Linus, tell me you love me." Linus folds himself into his mother's arms and says, "I love you." That's it.